I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission of January 7th, 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, are available online or at the Planning and Development Services Department, room 213. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. In addition, a copy of all staff reports and other relevant documents for the matters to be considered by the Planning Commission are included in a binder that is located on the dais and is available for public for review. Out of the courtesy for those attending this meeting, commissioners and the staff, cell phones may not be used in the chamber during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. Please note the Planning Commission action today is final on the following items. Item 1.2, Special Permit 864A. Item 1.3, Special Permit 25051. Item 1.4, Special Permit 19033A. Item 1.6, Waiver 25001. Item 4.2, Special Permit 25046, and Item 4.3, Special Permit 25045. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is recommended to the City Council or County Board. The first item of business is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held December 17th, 2025.
So moved, Campbell.
Second, Edens.
Laura?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Eddings,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will now ask Laura to read all the consent agenda items into record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there's anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Laura, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
I would like to note that Chair Joy has declared a conflict of interest of Comprehensive Plan Conformance 25001. Commissioner Joy will recuse herself from the consent agenda and will not participate in the vote on the consent agenda items. Vice Chair Cruz will serve as chair until after the voting of the consent agenda. Item 1.1, Comprehensive Plan Conformance 25014, to review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, an amendment to the Antelope Valley Redevelopment Plan to revise the 18N Building Redevelopment Project to construct a multifamily building consisting of 87 units and associated parking, generally located at the southwest corner of 18th and N Streets. Item 1.2, Special Permit 864A, to amend Special Permit number 864 to allow an academy for up to 30 students on property generally located at 4547 Calvert Street. This item is final action. Item 1.3, Special Permit 25051 for Nebraska Land Recycling Center to allow a salvage yard special permit for recycling center use in the I-1 zoning district on property generally located at 5340 North 57th Street. And this item is also final action. Item 1.4, Special Permit 19033A, to add a use at the locally landmarked Cooley Dodge Farmstead to include short-term rental and future construction of an additional dwelling generally located at 17185 Bluff Road, Waverly, Nebraska. And this item is also final action. Item 1.5, Annexation 25011, to annex approximately 4.7 acres, generally located at South 91st Street and Nebraska Parkway. Item 1.6, waiver 25001 to Lincoln Municipal Code 26.23.140, development standards to waive the minimum lot depth requirement of 90 feet on two R4 residential lots on an associated final plat on property generally located at 4549 Meredith Street. And this item is also final action. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items? Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting these sites to be disclosed? If there's anyone here wishing to speak on these consent agenda items, please stand and state that item.
We do not see anyone here that would like to speak on the consent agenda items.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second, Edens.
Laura, please call the vote.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Cruz.
Yes.
Consent agenda approved 6-0.
Thank you for your patience to get back here. Okay. There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearings. Prior to staff making a brief presentation, each staff person should state their name, agency, and address. The applicant will then be requested to present their testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and or included as part of the record, please provide them to the clerk. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The clerk will use the light system to help aid your timing for your testimony. The lights will appear on the monitors provided. The clerk will indicate when you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. The red light indicates that your 5 minutes have expired. Once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will then indicate your time is up. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Laura, please call the first public hearing item.
Item 4.1, use permit 22004A, to amend existing use permit to allow for 21 townhouse units, to reduce the front yard and internal setbacks, and to reduce the minimum required distance between water and sanitary mains on property generally located at North 26th Street and Kensington Drive. Please note for the record, use permit 22004A was posted in the Lincoln Journal-Star Legal as a final action item in error. This item is not a final action item and will be moving forward to City Council following today's Planning Commission hearing. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these applications?
There are not.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of these sites to be disclosed?
There are not.
Good afternoon. Emma Martin, Planning and Development Services, 555 South 10th Street. This is a request to amend use permit 22004 at 5245 North 26th Street, which this proposes a change to the current approved layout as well as 3 associated waivers. The existing use permit currently allows 25 multifamily dwelling units on 1 lot, while this proposal would instead develop 21 townhouse units on individual lots. Access to these lots would be taken from private roadways, as shown on this site plan, which would take access from North 26th Street. The property is zoned O3 Office Park District, which permits both multifamily and townhouse dwellings. The applicant has requested an alternative method for stormwater detention, and they are working through approval with Lincoln Transportation Utilities Watershed. The applicant is required to provide a method that meets LTU watershed satisfaction before final approval. And again, they're working through that with LTU Watershed right now. The applicant has requested 3 waivers with their application. The first is to reduce the required front yard setback along North 26th Street, which is highlighted in yellow, from 30 feet to 15 feet. This will create sufficient buildable area for the proposed dwelling units. This request is justified as the reduction will not have a significant impact on the property to the east across North 26th Street, which is zoned B2. Business district, while maintaining the 40-foot rear yard setback to the residential neighbors directly to the west. You can see on this exhibit right here, directly to the west are residential neighbors, while across the street here are businesses and medical services. The second request is a reduction of all internal setbacks to 0 feet to create a cohesive layout. This request is also seen as justified, as the change to the internal setbacks will not adversely impact the use permit or the surrounding areas. It will not reduce setbacks to any external lot lines, and it won't impact amenities like sidewalks or the layout of the townhomes, as townhouses already share party walls. The third request is a reduction in the minimum required distance between water and sanitary sewer mains and buildings from 15 feet to 10 feet. Lincoln Water Systems has recommended denial of this waiver, as reducing the distance between the water mains and buildings increases the liability to the city of Lincoln, and the risk of damaging buildings during construction increases. The recommendation for this waiver is denial. Overall, this application does not substantially change the approved use of the site. The approved dwelling units will be reduced from 25 to 21, and all external setbacks, excluding the front yard setback, will remain the same and in compliance with O3 zoning. The addition of townhomes along an existing neighborhood edge supports the 2050 Comprehensive Plan's policies, elements, and goals by adding housing variety to residential areas and providing missing middle housing. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nate Burnett, Rig Engineering, 601 Old Cheney Road, Suite A, Lincoln, Nebraska. Good afternoon. Just want to say thank you to the planning department. We had extensive just coordination on this project with the new pre-application process, and was able to work through a lot of the things that made this process fairly straightforward. So kudos to them for just allowing that pre-application process to be successful. Emma gave a great overview of the project. We're working through some stuff through Watershed right now regarding using a hydrodynamic separator instead of what was previously approved for the site on use permit 22004 with like a detention cell. The only thing that I was going to note is regarding the waiver requests, we do have a proposed solution in regards to the 15 feet. So I'll just kind of note that here. Once that comes up. So what we're proposing, we'll move the water from in between the units into the middle, which would be directly at that 15 feet. And then the sanitary sewer that we previously had can go back, and we can just have that on the west side of the units. So all other waivers will remain the same, and we'll just modify our stuff to meet that 15-foot distance from the building to utilities. Any questions?
Yes, Commissioner?
Have you discussed this with planning?
No, with coming off the holiday week, we haven't had a chance to discuss that specific item with planning. We had the opportunity to discuss with them regarding the approved alternate and have been working diligently with LTU Watershed on that one, just because that one was a bigger deal to us than this waiver. We have waiver request for the utilities. We have, like I said, just been able to work today through some different options and seen the depths of the sewer and water, but we did not have a chance to discuss that with planning.
So would it be improper to recommend an amendment that it meets the approval of watershed management for it to be located in the streets rather than, and at 15-foot back rather than the 10?
The watershed management was the water quality. The waiver request for the utilities for the sewer and water was LTU.
Okay.
So we're working with watershed management on the water quality, and that's based on conversations with Emma and Steve. General note, or condition C 1.7, I believe, is what it is. Maybe it's just 1.7. It's general enough. It's your typical, hey, we'll work through in accordance to watershed management. That issue we're working through with them. Regarding the waiver that they're recommending denial on, I guess what we're trying to say is we no longer need that waiver.
Okay.
And so the conditional approval that planning has said, we can just remove that waiver and still request, fully request what we're presenting to you here today, and we can design around that. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry for any miscommunication there.
We got there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? No, thank you.
Right.
At this time, we're asking for testimony in support. Testimony in an, double check to, perfect. Excellent. Welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Gene Clement, 2425 Folkways Boulevard, number 234, Lincoln. I'm a member of the Nordgate Garden Estates Board of Directors, and I'm speaking on behalf of the HOA. We have no problem with this, but we're wondering on the, will this light up here?
Yes, please.
Takes a little while, but yes.
Just takes a little while.
Here we go.
Okay, it's on me. Okay, I'm seeing here. So where the R4 and the O3 are, if you see it on your maps.
If you point on the
Yeah, there you
picture
go.
down there,
Yeah.
then we
On
can
here?
see it. There
Okay,
you go.
I don't
Perfect.
see anything here.
There you go.
Okay, right along there. This is, the R4 is the Hollyhock, and then the O3 is the new applicant thing. We're the property line right there between the two. There's a sharp drop off there from our property to this property. And we're just asking for a retaining wall or something like that to be put there because it is a very sharp drop off. That's the only thing that we have. Otherwise, everything's okay.
Great.
Anything else?
Does anyone have any questions? For
I
this
didn't
test-
hear the planning person say anything about the wall at all. I don't think she did. I'm not sure. If I missed it, we probably did. But if
We
there-
can talk, we can ask that question for
Yeah.
you when we do rebuttal.
Yeah.
So, but we appreciate your testimony. Any questions for? Okay, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Any other testimony in support? Testimony in a neutral capacity? Any testimony in opposition? Staff questions? Do we want to talk to Emma about that wall?
Not sure wouldn't be Nate that would want to
Well,
talk to.
I'm guessing we want to do the applicant. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and have the applicant rebuttal, please.
We are showing a retaining wall there.
Oh, good.
So if this pulls up,
That'd be awesome. Thank
right,
you.
oops, right there, proposed retaining wall.
Okay, good. Thank you for dealing with that.
He had indicated, is that the,
North is to
okay.
the right. Yeah, sorry.
it's
Throws me
showing
to-
north straight up.
Yeah,
on the-
yeah.
Oops, get that off the screen.
How about that? Is that better?
Very good.
All right.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a minute here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Love it when a plan comes together.
Okay. We're good with that, all of that? Mm-hmm. Let's have a motion then to close the public hearing.
I would move to close the public hearing.
Second, Edens?
Laura?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Raymond Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Public hearing closed.
And now a motion, yes.
And I would move to approve use permit 22004A with the amendments, removing the one that would be, has been solved.
Okay.
Second, Edens?
Campbell.
Yes.
Yeah, just a minute, Laura. Let's have some
Oh, yeah.
discussion
Oh, yeah,
just
that's
in
right.
case.
Sorry.
I assume that would be the right way to do that, because
Oh, you're so.
They're gonna let us know.
Never assume, never assume.
Steve Hendrickson with Planning and Development Services, 555 South 10th Street. You're basically recommending denial to it, so it's effectively the same thing. Our report did not include in the conditions of approval that waiver. The applicant's agreeing with that, so whether
Oh,
you say it's
so it's just a-
withdrawn, you're notifying it's withdrawn, or it's denied, either way it's the same
A
thing.
regular motion. Okay, perfect. Excellent. Good. Thank you for explaining that, Steve. Any other comments you want to make?
I just think this is a good project, a good infill project, and it really solves an area that would be questionable on how to deal with. They've come up with a good idea.
Perfect. Anyone else? I agree with my fellow commissioners, so thank you. Let's go ahead and call the vote.
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Eddings,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Raymond Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Motion approved 7-0.
Okay. Let's move on to our next item.
Item
Thank you.
4.2, Special Permit 25046, Cornhusker Resilient Power Project to allow a battery energy storage system on property generally located at North 120th Street and Highway 6. And this item is final action. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these applications?
No, there are not.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of these sites to be disclosed?
No, there are not.
Good afternoon, George Wesselhoff, Planning and Development Services, 555 South 10th Street. So this project is located near North 120th and US Highway 6. It is a split jurisdiction property, split between the Lincoln 3-mile jurisdiction and City of Waverly. The proposal is for a battery energy storage system. The battery energy storage system, or BESS, was added to the Lincoln zoning regulations in July of 2025. Battery energy storage systems are a recent land use type that have come about as part of changes in the electrical energy system. They often will take the shape of shipping container or small storage building in appearance. They are utilized as part of energy transmission, substations, and/or solar or wind energy projects. This specific project is located on approximately 41 acres in the Lincoln 3-mile jurisdiction next to the City of Waverly. The zoning is AG agriculture. The project will interconnect, or it's proposed to interconnect to the LES transmission system using existing transmission infrastructure. The project will include BESS enclosures, batteries, safety monitoring equipment, access driveways, and other associated design aspects. The project will store energy during periods of low demand and discharge energy during periods of high demand or grid stress, supporting system reliability. So the Lincoln Municipal Code has criteria, specific criteria for the BESS systems. The first of which is that the system is used in association with energy transmission, substations, and/or solar or wind energy conversion systems, which, as mentioned, this will be used in conjunction with energy transmission. The next criteria is that it must meet the setback and height requirements of the district, so in this case, the AG district. This project is not requesting any waivers. it will meet the setback and height requirements of the AG district. The next criteria is that the Planning Commission may require additional screening to address site-related impacts of the BES. There's not a specific requirement for landscaping, but the Planning Commission has it as a specific criteria that additional landscaping could be added. When this was reviewed initially in the first review cycle, it was noted to add landscaping due to proximity to the city of Waverly and Highway 6. And so in response to that initial review, the applicant added a 25-foot wide perimeter landscaping buffer that will essentially go on the west and south.
Can you push that up a little bit?
Yeah.
We're
Sorry.
zooming out.
There you go.
So that will essentially go on the west and south sides of the project as currently proposed in terms of the landscaping. And that would take the form of six trees per 100 linear feet. 3 of the 6 trees would be evergreens. Now, I would note, as attached to the report, there was a letter from the city of Waverly, and they are asking for consideration of additional screening. Specifically, they have asked to screen the entire eastern and southern borders of the site and the south half of the western border of the site. So principally, they're asking for eastern screening in addition to what's shown here on the west and south. But in addition, they worked with a landscape architect that is recommending screening of the entire site. So there's a proposal from that landscape architect in the back of the report. It's very prescriptive. It gets into species, land cover, et cetera. And so again, that it would be up to the Planning Commission if you wanted to add additional beyond what they're currently showing. So the next criteria pertains to an emergency action plan, and that criteria states that the emergency action plan must be approved by the Lincoln Bureau of Fire Prevention or Rural Fire District as applicable. That includes pertinent information in the case of fire or other emergency on the site. And so they did include, the applicant did include an emergency action plan. The initial review by Waverly Fire and Rescue in November noted concern with having the necessary resources and equipment to respond to an incident. They did mention a specific option or contract with LFR. However, Lincoln Fire and Rescue has not expressed any interest in specifically entering into an agreement for fire service. The applicant, after that initial review, did respond with 2 letters which are attached to the report. One is from Sophos Power, the applicant themselves, and then ESRG, which is a consultant that provides project review for emergency response planning. And they noted that the projects like these have 3 to 4 years of permitting. It takes a while to get through all the permitting, and this will allow sufficient time for safety planning and training. And it is a condition of approval before building permit. I would note that the emergency action plan is approved by the Waverly Fire and Rescue as required under the LMC. The next criteria pertains to safety data sheet information for Health Department review that was submitted and approved by the Health Department. The next criteria pertains to the Planning Commission may impose other conditions as appropriate to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. The applicant, as one of the items that they submitted above and beyond the requirements, included a decommissioning plan, which is not required, but they did include that. And that plan shows a cost of over $7 million to decommission the site. So the recommendation as a condition of approval is to provide a surety, and that language for that decommissioning surety is taken from the solar decommissioning language from the county. So it's something that's been used before in other instances. I would also note that the Health Department did review a noise impact study with the applicant, and that was reviewed very closely with the applicant, and it does meet the Lincoln Municipal Code for noise. Finally, I would mention the City of Waverly was included from the initial review in November when this was submitted, and this was due to the proximity of the project, of course, to their city limits and Highway 6 corridor. They had two overall areas of concern. The first being the fire service, as noted, and then the second being the need for proper design and landscaping with the general commercial zoning and commercial corridor along Highway 6. Finally, I would note that we do have representatives from both the Health Department and County Engineer here today, if there's questions of those departments. We also have representation from the City of Waverly if there's specific Waverly questions. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Commissioner.
Is LFR, are there 3 mile jurisdiction outside the city limits? Did they have any responsibility for that 3 miles?
They do not. It would be up to them if they wanted to enter into a contract.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, testimony from the applicant, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Happy New Year, Commissioners. David Levy, Barron Home Law Firm, 301 South 13th Street. With me is Eric Wood with Energy Safety Response Group. Had to make sure I got the acronym correct. We also moved offices, but I think I got the new office address as well. We do have a PowerPoint. I think we can be within the 10 minutes, Madam Chair. That would be our 5 minutes, but if we get close to the end, we can wrap up, or if you would give us just another minute, that would do it if you are willing and if need be. But we'll try and be brief and timely, and so far so good on the technology. That
Excellent.
came up for everybody?
See?
Okay.
Good, yes.
2026 is off to a good start.
Let's see it.
All right, let's do it. So this is the Cornhusker Resilient Power project. This is a 170 megawatt battery energy storage system. This is the type of system that we were here talking about last summer when the city adopted or amended the Lincoln zoning ordinance to allow these types of projects. Very briefly, Sophos Power was founded in Spain in 2004. They have over 20 years of experience, approximately the last 10 years of that developing in the United States, including significant experience developing battery energy storage systems. Battery energy storage system, you might remember this from this summer, but essentially it is a collection of containers that look somewhat like a steel shipping container that we're all familiar with, that has racks in it that hold battery modules. Those modules hold the individual battery cells. It's also worth noting, and Eric can speak to this much better than I can, but each one of these cells, each one of these modules, each one of these racks, each one of these containers has safety equipment in it and monitoring equipment in it that monitors for heat and voltage and things like that. Each one of these is monitored remotely 24/7, and any of these can be shut down at any time if there is an incident. Benefits of battery energy storage, as we talked about last summer, these really are part of the electrical grid. They do work sometimes in conjunction with renewable energy projects. These are in no way, shape, or form associated with a renewable energy project, but rather they're associated with the electric grid. In this case, there are a number of high voltage transmission lines that really kind of surround this site. Those are Lincoln Electric System operated lines, Lincoln Electric System infrastructure. This project would interconnect to those lines and support the grid in doing so. NFPA safety requirements. I'll just do this briefly. Eric will talk more about this, but you might also remember from last summer, NFPA is the National Fire Protection Association. NFPA 855 is their gold standard. That is routinely reviewed and updated by a committee of experts, firefighters, and other experts. Eric's company is on that committee, one of those people who helps update that standard and keep that current. That's not a legal requirement, but it is a requirement of any financing or being able to insure the project, and it's something that we fully intend to comply with, and if the commission wanted to make that a condition of approval, or I think by representing to you that we will comply with it, it would become part of the approval as well. UL Underwriters Laboratory, we see those little stickers on lots of things we buy. Same group, different standard. UL 9540 and UL 9540A. Getting into the project itself, you can see here the north-south street there is 120th Street. The diagonal, of course, is Highway 6. The sort of diagonal dark line that you see to the northeast of the white area, which is the property or the project boundary, is a water feature, but that also happens to be almost exactly the boundary of the City of Lincoln's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. So this project is right there on that east edge of the city's zoning jurisdiction, but clearly within the jurisdiction. That area within the white box is approximately 28 acres. That would have the battery infrastructure in it, as well as a substation for the project. And then you see 120th Street there. That would be the access point. I'm going to just cheat a little bit here. I'm going to use this just to talk very briefly about the landscaping. And I do want to note, I should have done this at the beginning. Sophos did hold an open house in Waverly at the community center in early December, late November. I think it was well attended. There were probably 30 people there, maybe something like that. Eric was there, others were there as well. We had boards around the room and talked to people for a couple of hours. So we did hold that open house. And the city of Waverly, George did a good job of outlining the concerns that Waverly expressed to us. We've had a number of meetings with the city of Waverly, and you have in your packets a letter from the city of Waverly withdrawing their objection to the project. On the landscaping part, the agreement that we came to with the city of Waverly is to screen the east side, the south side, and the south half of the west side of the project. There's really nothing but farm fields at this point, at least to the north. There's an access drive, or there would be an access drive off of 120th, about halfway north-south on the west side of the project. And so the agreement is that the screening would come up to the access drive. So it'd be that south half of the west side, the entire south side, of course, along Highway 6, and then the entire east side as well. So if you're leaving Waverly, coming to Waverly on Highway 6 or on Highway 6, you would not, or on the interstate, really, you would not see the project. The area already is it's behind the railroad tracks. There's kind of a berm there. There's already a good growth of natural trees there, but this would significantly enhance that landscaping. Again, this is just the zoning in the area. Site plan details, you can see just a little bit more detail. There's the access drive, the battery containers, the substation is there as well. 206 containers, 52 inverters. These are lithium iron phosphate batteries. We talked a little bit about last summer how using iron instead of nickel, when you have a battery in a Tesla or something like that, the material is nickel. It's lighter, which is good for a car, but it's also not as stable of an element. These are very heavy with the iron, but it makes them safer and more stable. Compartmentalized, these are non-occupiable. You can't climb in there or anything like that. UL listed NFPA. As George mentioned, this project complies with all of the requirements of the zoning ordinance. I know I'm going through these quickly, but I want to be mindful of time. And here are quickly some visuals as to what you will see. So this is looking from the southwest. This is looking almost directly north. And then here are some community benefits of the project. $17 million of tax benefits over a 20-year period, approximately $3.8 million of that to the benefit to the Waverly schools. And with that, Eric, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, appreciate it. My name is Eric Wood. I am a senior consultant with Energy Safety Response Group. I had 20 years in the fire service prior to transitioning into the private sector for ESRG. 6 years prior to transitioning over, I had the opportunity to be on our testing group that we have within ESRG, where we have performed roughly over 1,000 medium to large scale fire tests to date as it relates to battery energy storage systems. That is just one aspect of what our company does. It is a very bulk in research and development so that we can analyze and we can look at different iterations as we look at chemistries, form factors, different aspirations of what this industry is looking to propose as we start looking at different sites across the country. We kind of range from the east to the west. I am from Ohio, so my address is 7475 Dayton Brant Road, Tip City, Ohio 45371. But I have the opportunity to travel all over the United States as well as into Canada, Mexico to help with these systems. If you want to go to the next slide, I know we're kind of crunching on time.
You got it.
So as he mentioned, we do sit on multiple standard technical panels, which is known as STPs under Underwriter Laboratories. We assist with different iterations as we look at testing parameters, specifically as it relates to UL 9540 and 9540A. We also have individuals within our company that sit on the NFPA 855 committee. NFPA 855 became authored in 2019, and we have had presence there ever since. With NFPA 55, it is a cyclical document that every 3 years a new iteration comes out. The new iteration has dropped at the end of 2025, which is now the 2026 version. We had insight and input into that specific standard, and we also have 2 members right now that sit on that standard collectively. This is where I want to spend a little bit more time as we kind of digest a little bit what these testing standards are, as well as NFPA 855. Basically, in a nutshell, NFPA 855 is the overreaching standard that tells companies like Sophos how to commission a system all the way through decommissioning. With the new update in 2026, there were minimal changes from the 2023 because we did not, as a collective, see mass input to change anything holistically. There were minor changes, much like what NFPA does on a regular basis, to say, give me more money. So they always have to make a little bit of changes in there so they can keep putting new iterations out and to make it seem paramount. But again, there are minimal changes. The UL 9540 and 9540A, those are the 2 specific testing standards that every system and technology has to comply with. So with those testing standards under UL 9540A, that is known as a propagation test, and it has to show compliance with the propagation test. When we do the UL 9540A test, that means that any safety standards that are integrated into that specific enclosure and that specific technology, we cannot utilize it. We are strictly looking at the battery and the cell themselves to determine, again, what does propagation look like. That's UL 9540A. Under UL 9540, what we look at there is then we start evaluating all the safety aspects of that enclosure and that technology to determine, do they work appropriately? So part of what we do in our company is we evaluate those specific systems across the board with UL 9540 and 9540A, and then we also document draft forms of hazard mitigation analysis as well as emergency response plans. That hazard mitigation analysis that's required by NFPA 55 to be documented and provided to the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, much like yourselves, or to the fire department, has to then validate exactly what that system looks like, along with the safety values and the assets that are integrated into it to prove its efficiency into mitigating any issue. With the emergency response plan, it is a site-specific emergency response plan. We have the opportunity to review the initial emergency action plan, and we had a discussion last night with Waverly about a site-specific emergency response plan. With those EAPs and those ERPs, as we call them short, what that does is that allows the fire department to understand what they do to manage an incident should one occur. Furthermore, the other thing that we do in our company is we provide training. We have the opportunity to go across the United States as well as into Canada and Mexico, which I have done numerous different times to provide what we reference as our Battery 101, where we go with fire departments and we work with them closely so they gain the knowledge and understanding of how to manage an incident. If you want to go to the next one. This is just an example of what the lithium technology that Sophos is wanting to bring in. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it just kind of gives you an idea of what the layout of that specific system would look like if you go to the next one for me. And this starts to break things down a little bit more. So you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to actually move over here because I don't have my glasses on. I've reached that age. It's happening.
It's happening.
So I want you to please note that everything in here within this specific enclosure has to show compliance that it meets with UL 9540A. So things like the fire code compliance, it has to have the electronic battery management system that has to be UL 9540 and 9540A compliant. The thermal management system that coincides with the battery management system has to show compliance with UL 9540 along with 9540A. Fire detection, whether that is a smoke detector, gas detector, heat detector, doesn't matter. It has to show compliance not only with UL 9540 and 9540A, but it has to show compliance with the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association 72, which then all those have to be tied back into what's known as an NFPA 72 compliant fire alarm control panel. There's an internal fire management system that's integrated in that has to show compliance with UL 95 and 9540A. And then the 24/7 monitoring. That is also a requirement with UL as well as NFPA 55 that these systems have to be monitored 24/7 to be able to provide insight should something occur. Thank you.
And that's it.
There's a lot.
Thank
Okay.
you for the grace with a little extra time, or maybe a lot of extra time, but we appreciate it. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's start here. Commissioner?
Go ahead.
Gave us a lot of information pretty quickly. I appreciate the thoughtfulness on time. But at the end of the day, if this catches fire, what happens? In layman's terms, bring it down.
We allow it to self-consume.
Self-consume.
I'm sorry, you allow what?
We allow it to self-consume.
Okay.
Through all the research and the testing that we've done, so even though I had 6 years on, our testing has been doing these much longer. In all those years that we've done the testing and working with UL, what we've determined is that allowing it to self-consume is the best course of action, because that is what they're set up to do through the testing processes.
And again, each container, each cell, each rack, each module has sensing equipment on it. So long before it got to that, the likely outcome is that, and I know your question was, okay, all that goes wrong if it catches fire. But again, just recall that the first thing that would happen, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it would start to heat up, right? Before it could catch fire, it would start to heat up. Those sensors would sense that, and they would shut down that cell or that module or that container to keep that from happening. But, you know, if all of the fail-safes failed and you got to that point, then you get to that
I
point.
appreciate that explanation as well, too.
Yep.
And so that means it would be contained to the cell or to the entire trailer?
So, if I may,
Yes, please.
we all have one of these cool little gadgets, right? So, 2010, 2011, what was happening with these from the Samsung side? They were blowing up in people's pockets, right? So they didn't have a battery management system inside the phone. Now we do. And with that battery management system, along with that thermal management system, what that does is that helps regulate the battery. So the thermal management system, right? If I leave my cell phone out in the sun way too long, what happens?
Turns off.
And then it tells you that you can't use it until what? It cools back down. So that's that thermal management system that's integrated in. Well, then that battery management system on the battery, what that does is that prevents overcharging. So in 2010, 2011, when all that was occurring with the Samsung, you would plug your phone in, use it, right? And we all have kids and they like using those kinds of things, right? And I see my kids all the time plugging it in, they use that phone. But back then, because that battery management system wouldn't prevent that overcharge from occurring, now all of a sudden you have the swelling of the battery, and then that's where you had those issues happening. So now with these systems, what I want you to think about is a heavier, more robust style of battery management system. So the ideology and what we have to prove through the hazard mitigation analysis, along through the research and development, is to show that when something occurs, that battery management system then isolates it. So every enclosure has its own integrated battery management system in it. So then if something starts to go in that direction, that battery management system then isolates it, and then they can begin the shutdown of that specific cell or that specific module, and then that 24/7 monitoring system then says, okay, we're gonna now do more, and then we shut the entire enclosure down based off of what that policy and procedures are for that remote operations center.
Great.
That's a great
And
explanation.
then
Thank you.
additionally, after your meeting with Waverly, you've now added screening on the east side, as
Correct.
was proposed by the landscape architect, as well as the south and the west.
Correct.
What's right across Highway 2 from this site?
Across Highway 6.
I mean Highway 6,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, across Highway 6 from this site are what I would call a variety of commercial and light industrial type uses. There's a
Is that where the Hamilton,
And no, it's where Morton Building is?
Morton Building is one, yep. There's kind of a quarry type operation. I can't recall the name of the
I think
business
an
right now.
Asphalt plant.
Okay.
Yeah, and building materials and,
Okay.
so yeah, what I would characterize as commercial slash light industrial. You get a little bit farther on toward Waverly, and then you start getting into the more retail,
Right.
commercial
Right.
type uses.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
I have a list.
Commissioner?
I have a list. Okay.
Love it.
What is the plan for the land not in the white boundary that you showed on one of your first few slides?
Yep. So, there, well, we can get a better one even. That one. So the land around that would be ideally continue to be farmed.
Oh.
You know, you've got the waterway there, which makes it a little bit of a challenge, but the goal would be to have that land still used. What Sophos would do, I was going to point to the screen here, that won't do you any good. They will acquire, that's all one parcel going all the way to the northeast, even off the screen right now. So the idea will be to subdivide that at about that water boundary, acquire that southwesterly 41 acres. That northern then 40 acres would remain presumably in farming. Ideally, whoever is farming that continues to farm the other side of the creek, if you will, as well.
Great. Your project size, I was hoping to get kind of the layman's term. So 170 MWACs, like what is that energy wise? Like give me an example.
It's, okay. So it's 170 megawatt alternating current.
Okay.
That's a lot of energy. I'm trying to think of what's a good comparison. I don't
That
know
many
if
containers.
you can think of one. I mean, that's a good sized, that's a utility scale energy generation facility. Whether it be, that would be a smallish coal plant, for example, but potentially, I mean, it's at that scale.
Okay.
Now, again, this facility is not generating energy. It is taking energy from the grid, storing it, transmitting it, and providing other voltage regulation and other services to the grid to help keep the grid resilient and reliable. We may have talked this summer. If you think about the grid as a bucket of water and you're trying to keep that bucket perfectly full, this helps do that in a probably oversimplified. I'm sure there's an electrical engineer back here going.
Well, no,
but
wintertime,
you
summertime,
get the
we
idea.
use more energy depending on,
Right,
And
exactly.
so we need to fill that
the grid
need.
fluctuates, and so it's a significant amount of energy that can be stored there. It's a utility scale solar farm or wind farm. It's a small utility scale solar, or I'm sorry, coal or gas plant, something like that.
Okay, thank you. I was just
Yep.
curious.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, regarding your training that you do, so is that something that you just offer, and our fire department or Waverly Fire Department or even our health department's hazmat team would have to pay for that training?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
So the company offers that
yeah.
training.
Okay.
And we'll do that training annually, unless, Waverly, for example, says we're good, we got it.
Okay.
But right now, the agreement is to offer that training annually, and that would be at the cost to the owner of the facility.
Oh, wow.
And if City of Lincoln Fire and Rescue wants to come, great. If the hazmat team wants to come, great. If a rural fire department from up the road wants to come, great. Those are all good and welcome.
That's amazing.
I just go where they tell me.
Eric will be doing the training, not me.
I love that. I have two more questions. So I'm curious about weather events. Has that been I just don't know how heavy these containers are. And I think that's fresh in the mind because of the tornado that did go through that Highway 6 area pretty recently and demolished a ginormous building. So I'm just curious, high winds, hail, tornadoes, how does that affect something like this?
So this was a question that was brought up in the open house, and I don't have a clear answer on the tornado aspect.
Okay.
That's an engineering answer, and I would not be able to provide you with the right
fair.
direction to give.
Okay.
What I can tell you is these are very heavy when they're fully populated. So they're transported fully populated, and then they get transitioned onto either concrete slabs or then onto concrete pillars based off of what they deem worthy. So they're usually just shy of 100,000
So a container weighs almost 100,000 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, they're just shy. Most of the time they'll fluctuate between 60 to 100, somewhere in that realm, but we're starting to see that they're pushing that 100,000 pound.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just to follow up on that a little bit, so you've got something that's very heavy, right? 100,000, what is it, 50 tons, I think? And then, as Eric mentioned, there's either concrete pillars into the ground where that container is then bolted to those pillars, or there's a concrete slab on the ground, which is the entire perimeter, or the entire, it's underneath the entire container. That container has big steel brackets on the sides of it, and then it's bolted to that concrete slab. So high wind, hail,
Yeah, that would,
rain, any of that kind of stuff is I think safely we can say is not an issue.
Yeah.
A tornado, it'd be a big thing for a tornado to move, but we all have seen tornadoes.
You do never know, but-
Right, I mean, they can, but you think about that tornado, an empty boxcar, I don't know what that weighs, but those get tipped over by tornadoes. I would venture to say this is probably heavier than that, and again, this is bolted to a concrete slab or concrete piers in the ground. So it's a pretty stable situation.
My last question, I think, is a fun question. Has any towns or anybody considered doing murals on these containers to make them beautified?
I've not seen that.
I'm not seeing that, no.
Just an idea. Don't know if that would be.
That's a great idea.
I don't know if that'd be capable or security wise, but I think that would be fun. We see them on the court,
Yeah.
Anyway,
I have not seen that.
think
no.
about murals.
I like it. Thank you.
Nice.
That's all my questions.
Other questions from us commissioners? Okay, I think.
Okay,
at this
thank you.
time-
We'll be here for rebuttal. Thank you.
Rebuttal. Okay, thank you.
I'll leave that. Thanks.
Okay, now we're going to start with testimony. Testimony in support. Testimony in a neutral capacity. Testimony in opposition. If we have more than one or two people, why don't you go ahead and start moving towards the front, and we'll have our 5 minutes for each person.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I have to read this off my phone because I didn't bring anything that's printed.
And if you would start with your name and address, that would be great.
I will do that.
Thank
My
you.
name is Missy Pishna, and I am at 10941 Lancashire Circle in Waverly.
I'm sorry, could you speak a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, 10941 Lancashire Circle in Waverly, and my name is Missy Pishna.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. I'm speaking today as a resident of Waverly, concerned about the long-term safety and accountability of this project. I want to be clear that I'm not here to oppose battery technology or renewable energy. My concern is about how this project manages risk over its entire lifetime, not just the beginning and the end. What I see in the documentation is that of what I would call a cradle to grave outline. There's information about how the facility is built, and there are references to emergency responses and eventual decommissioning, and there's a plan for them to pay for that. What's missing is a clear, enforceable plan for the decades in between. And that middle period is the operational lifetime of the facility. It's when most real-world problems are going to occur. Equipment ages, ownership changes in these capacities, usually multiple times. Budgets tighten and attention does fade, especially when the facility is a remote facility that there aren't a lot of laborers to manage. Yet the publicly available detailed plans that explain how this facility will be maintained, inspected, and monitored year after year are not available. The emergency plan itself acknowledges serious risk, including toxic gases, long duration fires that we can't put out, and reignition that can last for several days. What can happen what has happened in other battery facility explosion situations is really what they are. There is a 7-mile radius that has to shelter in place, and they can't use air conditioning, they can't use heat, they can't use anything like that because of the gases that are emitted from a fire. They're really detrimental to the people within a near area. Sorry, lost my place. I'm also concerned that some critical details are still listed as to be determined, and one of those things, the last time I reviewed the information, was the actual battery itself has not been finalized. I think that the suggestions we're being asked to trust the things that will be finalized later, rather than requiring that information up front. From a community perspective, this creates uncertainty. We live here for the long term, and businesses come and go. We don't rotate out every few years the way that some companies do. This is where we raise our families, and this is where our homes are. I'm not asking that this project be stopped. I'm asking that the decision makers require a full life cycle plan for a facility like this. Not just a cradle to the grave, but an entire lifespan in between, including maintenance, inspections, accountability, and environmental protections. That these things are put in place when this facility does change hands, not if. The level of clarity protects residents, first responders, and even the project owners themselves. Thank you for your time. Have a great afternoon.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Testimony in opposition. Does anyone else want to testify? Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and move forward then with staff questions. Thanks, George. Cindy, Commissioner Cindy.
George, you had mentioned, I was just going back and looking at the conditions, and the surety bond is something that you mentioned that is being asked for, but that is something you are suggesting we add today? Or am I missing it?
That is condition 2.4. It's already contained in the conditions.
There it is. Thank you. I just didn't see the number. I was like scrolling back through to look for the number.
Oh, you're good.
Yep, okay, great, thank you. And then, I think my other question is for the applicant.
Thanks. I do have.
Commissioner.
I just want to clarify, it was kind of mentioned, and we've gotten a lot of information, really. The Waverly Fire Department has to approve this plan before these batteries can be put on site. Did I understand that correct?
Before building permit, yes.
Or building
permit, okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Campbell?
Is there some reason that there's a 15-year delay before the annuity has to be in place?
That time frame came from the solar provisions. The applicant can confirm, but I believe in their decommissioning plan, it indicates a lifespan from 2026 to 2046, so a 20-year time frame. I mean, that could potentially be adjusted to a lesser time frame if the commission so chose.
Okay. Any other staff questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Applicant rebuttal, please. Who would like to start? Commissioner?
I had questions, but I didn't know if they had other things they wanted to address.
You want to start first?
You always take really good notes when people are, so I'm like, if you have things you want to say in response, then it may cover questions, so.
Yes.
Okay, I will follow your lead. Thank you.
Excellent. Good. Thank
Commissioners, again, David Levy, Barrett Home Law Firm, 301 South 13th Street. Briefly to respond to the items that were raised, the lifetime management of the project. So again, George just talked about the emergency action plan. Eric talked about the emergency response plan as well. Those are in place for the lifetime of the project. The agreement with Waverly, if I'm remembering correctly, is to provide annual training and outreach, and I'm sure communication more often than that, throughout the life of the project. So all of these things, and as George confirmed, I can't remember which one of you asked the question over here, that the Waverly Fire Department, Waverly Fire and Rescue, has to approve that emergency action plan before we can get a building permit. We've had lots of good conversations already with Waverly. I think we're off to a good working relationship there as well. So I feel like I think the comment is fair. From the testifier that, we don't want to just show up and say this is all great and then everybody goes away. there are things in place that the city of Lincoln is putting in place as conditions of approval of the special permit that require that ongoing communication, that emergency action plan, that emergency response plan, that communication. If Sophos or somebody buys the project, if they were not to do that and they were to kind of disappear, they would be at risk of losing their special permit. You're not going to go spend a couple $100 million to build a project based on the authority granted in a special use permit and do anything that gets you anywhere near losing that special permit. So that, I think there's a real enforcement mechanism there that you all I know are familiar with, that the city has through the special permit. The special permit then ties in the emergency action plan, emergency response plan, compliance with NFPA 855, the UL standards, all of those things that aren't going anywhere. International Fire Code, State Fire Marshal. There's lots of different authorities and legal documents that are going to require maintenance, monitoring, proper operation of this facility throughout its lifetime. So, Eric, I don't know, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head with all of those things. Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then the commenter also did reference explosions and things like that. I think what she's referring to is a project called Moss Landing that had a major incident last February. I think we talked about that in the summer. It's a very different project than what we're talking about here. Those batteries were all contained within a building, and those are old battery technology. Eric can speak to this a lot more eloquently than I can, but so my point is that that's a very different project than what we have here. You heard about the really annual or even semi-annual advances in the requirements and the technology, and these each being in a separate steel container is a tremendous step forward towards safety versus all of this being in an open building where then a propagation can happen a lot more quickly.
Correct.
And with a lot less protection. Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, so when we look at Moss Landing is its own unique entity. There's nothing else in the world like it. And at the time that it was retrofitted to become a energy storage site, it was pre-NFPA 55, where the code was not enforceable at that time. So with the code implementation through NFPA 55, along with the UL 9540 and 9540A standards, the testing standards that these things have to comply with, that is why the industry has transitioned to non-enterable outdoor enclosures. Within our site-specific emergency response plan that we build out, what we have in there is, when we talk with the fire department, is that we do not have any stipulation in there about a shelter or an evacuation, because on the testing ground we understand what we're dealing with non-enterable outdoor enclosures. Now, what we do tell the fire department is that because we are not the boots on the ground, they're the ones that are there actively doing something should an incident occur, that they then have to make that determination as to what they think is right for their specific jurisdiction. So if they feel that an evacuation is needed, we 100% support them in that, because that is their recommendation for what they think is best for that specific area. But in our site-specific ERP, we have nothing noted in there for a specific evacuation plan, because we as a company do not feel like it is a validated thing to implement into that site-specific emergency response plan.
Okay.
Commissioner Campbell, before you, well, go ahead. You had a question also
We'll start
about
with
the
Commissioner
surety.
Campbell and work our way through.
As far as the surety that is put in place, or the bonding, what has been your history across the country with other situations like this? When are they required bonding or a surety for decommissioning and so on?
So, a couple of things. You had asked why the 15 years.
Yeah.
And your second, I'll come to your current question first. Battery energy storage is a new technology in this kind of commercial deployment like we're talking about. Similar types of projects that have a decommissioning security, wind and solar, I've seen anything from day one to year 15 to none. And to go to your earlier question about why the 15 years in this case, two reasons. One, I think, as George may have mentioned, we borrowed that from your solar regulations or solar ordinance. And the reason for the 15 years is The decommissioning surety is to cover the net decommissioning costs. So it's the cost to go decommission the thing, but then less the value to salvage it.
Right.
And so the theory is that you're going to build this project, $200 million, whatever the number is. That equipment has a lot of value to it for a long time. And so the idea with the 15 years is that's approximately when the value of the equipment, the salvage value, the resale value, reuse value of the equipment would be less than the cost to remove it. So at that point, you've got a net positive decommissioning cost. If you were to require the surety on day one, the net decommissioning cost would be zero because the equipment is way, way more valuable than the cost to come and take it out. I don't mean to be flipped by that, but that's the logic behind the 15 years. When we worked on the solar regulations, we talked about trying to actually find project by project the place where the graph crosses, and we decided that that's difficult, and that just leads to a lot of questions and calculations, and we can always argue over numbers. And so 15 years was what we settled on. That seems to be the place where probably you could still at 15 years have a less than zero net decommissioning cost, but at that point we kind of said, okay, that makes sense. I will say that for a long time there is a state law for wind and solar that says that if a county or a city does not deal with decommissioning like you are here, then the Nebraska Power Review Board would deal with it. And their time for requiring the surety forever was 10 years after the 10th year of operation. 2 or 3 years ago, a senator who was not a big fan of renewable energy passed a bill that reduced that to 6 years. In my view, there was no real logic for going from 10 to 6. 10 was put in place on this same discussion about when the net salvage value no longer is positive, or the net decommissioning cost is no longer negative. And so, long answer to your question, but the short answer is, in my experience across Nebraska at least, 10 to 15 years is by far the most common window for when the surety is required.
And the 15 would also offset inflationary cost.
So, great question. And so part of the requirement there, and what we always suggest and do, is you do a decommissioning cost estimate and a salvage value estimate or reuse value estimate at the beginning, and then you update that every 5 years to address inflation, change in the price of what you might get for steel or copper or something like that, labor costs, all those kinds of things. And so then that also trues up nicely with a 15-year time frame. So you do your first, second, third, then you get to 15 years and you do a new estimate by a third-party professional engineer. You true that up, and whatever that number is based on all the data at that time, that's what then becomes the surety amount. Another 5 years goes by, you do the estimate again. If it's more, you add to the surety. If it's less, you would take away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edens.
You talked a lot about the remote operations and all the monitoring systems you have in place. I kind of want to know how often there's somebody there with boots on the ground. Is that an annual inspection? What does that look like on when do people actually put eyes on it?
So that's going to fall on SOFOS to then implement that operations and maintenance plan. And when they're going to have that done, I cannot speak upon that. That's for that company to answer.
It's more often than annual. I think, Russ, do you want to come up and address that, or can you? Sorry for the delay here, but we'll get you an answer.
Thank you.
Go ahead, name and address.
Yeah, thanks for having us here. Russ Edwards, 917 Anderson Street, Charlottesville, Virginia, 22903. And I think it's probably between the two of us. Generally, the maintenance and operations that's required is something like a monthly visit. You'll actually have more landscaping being done on the property than tends to be done on the system itself, because these systems are innately stable. And so part of the operations agreement, or part of the O&M that has to be done, is done for safety reasons, to make sure that vents are dedusted, that the system is operating appropriately. But it's very low traffic after the system is built itself.
But at least once a year, somebody's there.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Okay. Commissioner?
I know that battery storage is relatively, in this way, newer technology, but boy, when you drive around the country, you start seeing these lots of places. So one of the questions I think that the testifier talked about was changes in ownership, and so in your experience, has that happened where somebody is sold? I know there's issues about the investment, not wanting to lose the money, but has that happened in your experience where ownership has changed? And then part B to my question is the agreements with grids, both with people that are providing the energy that is stored and then where the energy is going to, what is the length of those agreements?
Sorry, that's not me.
So your first question in terms of a change of ownership, special permit runs with the land, so whoever owns it, they're subject to all the same conditions. It does happen. It's pretty common. Not all developers do that. Some developers build, own, and operate for the life. Others, their business model is to build, and then they'll collect a portfolio typically, and somebody will buy that portfolio. So that can happen. In this case, the agreement with Waverly expressly runs with the project, runs to any successors or assigns to the original developer. Special permit runs with the original developer. So can it happen? Does it happen? Yes. Are there a lot of safeguards in place to make sure that all of these requirements that we're talking about today that you'll impose, that the Power Review Board might impose, go along with it? Our agreement with the City of Waverly, yes, all of those things go with the project for its entire operational life as well. The agreement, so a project like this is a very large but otherwise typical utility customer, and so they would have some kind of a rate and an agreement with Lincoln Electric System in this case, most likely because they're the retail electric provider in that area, and they would be an electric customer of Lincoln Electric. In terms of the offtake agreements, if you will, the agreements to sell the capacity or the energy or the other attributes of the project, those vary from a year to 20 years. Capacity in particular is in great demand right now in the electric industry. And prices are kind of all over the place, and so people are entering into uncharacteristically short agreements, like a year, because they think the price can't get any worse, and so we'll try again in a year. More typically, those agreements are 15, 20, 25 years. And part of the reason for doing that is with a facility like this, you have a pretty low operation and maintenance cost, and it's pretty predictable. And so the buyer of that energy or those attributes it's essentially a fixed price contract for a very long period of time. You don't see that very often in contracts, but here you can do that because you kind of know the price of your product. And it's a real benefit to the buyers of those to have that very long-term, essentially fixed price contract, because it's very predictable for them. So, and it's great for the owner of the facility, of course, too, right? To know that, okay, I've got a buyer for my energy from this facility for the next 20 years. So those agreements tend to be more in that 15, 20, 25-year length. But candidly, I have seen short ones, more for capacity, just because the market is so volatile right now.
Well, I think one of the things lots of us love about living in Nebraska is that we're, a public power state, which, prevents some of the challenges in places like, say, Texas, where there's a, big energy problem, and then the private companies are creating, profit for themselves, and it makes a problem for the grid. So just was curious about how all that worked. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner.
And this might be kind of a combined question actually for staff as well. So we can add landscape requirements. The site plan shows landscaping, but it does not include the additional landscaping. Is that correct that you've agreed to with Waverly?
That's right. The site plan, quite frankly, just didn't catch up with all of the things with the holidays and everything that are going on. I apologize for that, but just to be clear, what we are committing to and what we agreed to with Waverly, and we'll have to get a final landscape plan approved with Waverly and by the city. And George will speak to this too, but is that landscaping on the entire east side of the property, the entire south side, and the south half of the west side up to the access drive.
Okay. I'm just curious as to if there's anything we need to do to make sure that that landscaping is part of the special permit that is approved.
Yes, that's a good question. There is a site-specific condition that pertains to landscaping, which is condition 1.6. If the commission so chose, you could, as a suggestion, add a statement that says, add landscaping on the east side of the property as per City of Waverly recommendation.
Oh, great. Good clarification. Okay.
And just to be clear, and sorry to, I think if I remember right, the landscape architect that Waverly hired had landscaping all the way around the project, if I remember right. My client's agreement with the city of Waverly is the 2.5 sides, but with that clarification, what George suggested, we are absolutely amenable to.
So if it said that there would be landscaping along the east, south, and the south half of the west side.
Exactly.
Is that accurate?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else for us? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second, Edens?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Public hearing closed.
And I would move to approve special permit 25046, amending the screening of the site to include the south half on the west side, the south side, and the east side of the project.
Second, Edens?
Thank you. Let's start our discussion.
This is what's coming. I mean, it's needed for balancing out power and such. And I think since its beginning, this has improved significantly to eliminate fires and damage and have better control over the cells and so on. So I will be supporting this project.
Does anyone else have any other discussion? Okay, I agree with my fellow commissioner. I will be supporting the project. Laura, let's call the vote.
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes,
Motion approved 7-0.
thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Laura, with the next one, please.
Item 4.3, Special Permit 25045, Pawnee Lake Resilient Power Project to allow a battery and energy storage system on a property generally located northwest 140th Street and West Holdred Street. And this item is final action. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these applications?
There are not.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of these sites to be disclosed?
There are not. George.
Thank you. So this project is located in western Lancaster County. We're north of West Holdred Street on the east side of Northwest 140th Street, which is the county line road with Seward County. The Lancaster County zoning regulations were updated in September of 2025, similar to the City of Lincoln, to add the battery energy storage system, or BESS. This specific request is on 20 acres. This is a 20-acre site. And approximately 16 acres will contain the project improvements. The zoning is AG agricultural. The project will interconnect, or is proposed to interconnect, with the NPPD transmission system. It's adjacent a substation of NPPD. The project, similar to the other project on the agenda here, will include BESS enclosures, batteries, equipment, and other aspects. The county regulations do include criteria, the first of which is that the system, the BESS, has to be used in conjunction with energy transmission, substations, and/or solar or wind energy systems, which, as mentioned, it would be used in conjunction with the energy transmission with NPPD. The next criteria is that it meets the setback and height requirements of the district unless adjusted by the Planning Commission. In this case, the project overall will meet the requirements, but the applicant is requesting a waiver to the setback on the south, and that would be specifically in the event of a 10-foot fence is needed for sound mitigation. It may or may not be, but in the event that a 10-foot tall fence on the south property line is needed for sound mitigation, then that is why that waiver is requested. The next criteria is that the Planning Commission may require additional screening to address site-related impacts of the BESS. Again, there's not a specific requirement, but after the review of the project, it is being recommended that the site plan includes evergreen trees planted along Northwest 140th on the west side at the rate of 6 trees per 100 linear feet. And those set of criteria were added as a note to the site plan, subject to review for electrical easements. Similar to the prior BESS project on the agenda, this application included an emergency action plan that was provided to the Malcolm Fire and Rescue for their review. They too did indicate concern with respect to having the necessary support staff in the event of an emergency. They referenced LFR, but again, LFR has not expressed any interest in specifically entering into an agreement for fire service. The applicant did provide a response similar to the other project from Sophos Power as well as ESRG that addresses the fire safety aspects again. And it is a condition of approval, again, that before building permit, that the emergency action plan is approved by the Malcolm Fire and Rescue. So the next criteria were health criteria. They did include information, safety data sheet for the battery chiller systems that was approved by the health department. They also included sound information that was reviewed. And I would note that you'll see in the staff report there's a sound table and specific requirements. The reason that shows up in this report and not in the other project report is because with the Lincoln Municipal Code, the sound requirements were already in place before the BESS ordinance was adopted, and so there was no need to replicate or duplicate those requirements. With the county regulations, we could not reference the Lincoln standards, so they had to be spelled out under the county resolution. Then also the Planning Commission, as another criteria, may impose other conditions as appropriate. A decommissioning surety is also recommended or included as a condition of approval for this BESS project. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, do we have questions for? Not at this time.
Thank you.
I do.
Oh, so sorry.
Sorry. George, do you have any idea what the traffic counts are on Northwest 140th Street?
I do not. The county engineer may be able to answer that.
Who might?
The county engineer, we have representation here from them.
Okay.
Do you want him to come up?
If he's here.
Yep.
Or someone in the office.
He's right
There we
here.
go.
Good afternoon, John Berry, Lancaster County Engineering, 444 Cherry Creek Road. I do not know that information offhand, Mr. Campbell. I can get that to you if that's a. I can
What
definitely get that to
what
you.
would your guesstimate be?
Over on that end of the county, I would say it's probably around 100, 150 is what I would probably guess.
Okay. That's per day?
Yes,
Okay,
but I can get you the exact information.
thanks.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, testimony from the applicant, please.
All right. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair and Commissioners. David Levy, Barrett Home Law Firm, 301 South 13th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska. With me, Eric Wood from Energy Safety Response Group. We've got a very similar presentation. You have seen it, of course, and so I'm going to skip through a little bit and really focus on the project-specific parts of it. And I think we'll be well within our time here, hopefully, but appreciate your patience with us. So same applicant company, same developer, same technology, same benefits, same safety requirements. So as George talked about, this is a site on the very west edge of Lancaster County. On the left side of the screen there is Northwest 140th Street. That's the county line with Seward County. The kind of gray polygon in the upper left is the NPPD substation that is there today. That's where this project would interconnect. And then you have the site there, which is an approximately 20 acre, the project on that site is using approximately 20 acres of that site. Again, the project fills up most of the site. If there were site outside the fence that the company owned, the goal would be to have that continue to be farmed or whatever the use of it is today. This just gives you a little bit broader perspective. You can see Northwest 140th Street, just north of Holdridge. On the left there, you can see the Interstate 80 a mile or so to the south. Here is the site plan, 242 containers, so this is a little bit bigger project, about 36 more containers. Again, lithium iron phosphate containers, same thing, compartmentalized, non-occupiable, separated. All of those distances and requirements come from all those safety regulations and requirements that we've talked about. It all meets the NFPA requirements and the UL requirements. We avoid wetlands in the 500-year floodplain. You can see the kind of upside down J-shaped water feature there over in the southwest corner of the site, and you can see the avoidance of that and the setback from that. Again, with the one exception that George mentioned, and I'll come back and talk about, which is the fence. This proposal meets all of the applicable requirements of, in this case, the Lancaster County zoning regulations. On the fence, so because the fence would be 10 feet high, it requires a 60-foot setback. So the waiver, I don't know exactly how you want to characterize it. It's not so much a waiver to allow the 10-foot fence, it's to allow a 10-foot fence within that 60-foot setback. And the basis for the request is really twofold. One, it allows the site to work better. It just gives us more site to work with. The other one is that if you have a fence that is set back 60 feet from the property line, you have 60 feet of kind of no man's land. I mean, the company would maintain it, but it's kind of wasted property. It might accumulate trash or different things like that. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense, at least to me, to have that property outside the fence. In this case, going back to this slide as well, the land use to the south there is generally agricultural, and so there's really no reason to require that setback of the fence. And so that's the basis of the request for that one waiver. Again, other than that, meets all requirements of the Lancaster County zoning regulations. Here again, this is looking, if you were driving north on Northwest 140th Street, this is what you would see. Off to your right would be the project. You can see the transmission lines there that are there today that connect that NPPD substation to the grid. This is the opposite, so now you're driving south. You see this on your left. This is farther away from this is a visual simulation, farther away from the southeast, and there you see the trees, and you can see the project there. You're looking there, though, from agricultural land. Community benefits, in this case, over $20 million approximately in 20-year tax benefits, and over about $4.5 million in benefits to the local school district. And with that, Eric, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add or anything there. Otherwise, we're, of course, happy to take your questions and appreciate your time as always.
Does anyone have any additional questions at this time? No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to ask for the testimony. First, the testimony in support, testimony in a neutral position, testimony in opposition. So whoever would like to go first, name and address, and then we'll go ahead and line up who's following. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Julia Lostro. My husband Kevin and I own and live on the farm directly north and east of this proposed site. Our property is right up against this proposed property.
Can you say your address?
Oh, sure. 13651 West Adams, Lincoln.
Thank you.
My husband's great-grandfather homesteaded the farm in 1870. He's the fourth generation to farm that property and to live on that farm. We have a son and daughter who also live on this farm, along with 11 grandchildren. They and their children are fifth and sixth generations living on the farm. We were contacted in July of 2024 about leasing or selling land for this project because our property is close. The offer was very lucrative, and they wanted an answer within a couple weeks. We weren't given very much time. It was, here it is, it has to be done by August 1st, and we received the information July 16th. However, our concerns about health, safety, and being vested in our community ended with us rejecting the offer. The people who own the property that they're going to use are not part of this community, and the project will not affect them or their children or neighbors. Money isn't as important as the safety risk to our family and neighbors. Another concern we have is when these entities demanding more power, data centers, etc., need more power and expansion of this project is deemed necessary, we're concerned about the use of eminent domain to take our property to make this larger. This project here is 200 megawatts. The other one in Waverly is 170, so it's a larger project. And we are extremely concerned about that. Sophos develops the property. Do they own that property throughout the whole process? No. So whatever they say and promise, we just don't feel confident that any follow-through could possibly happen down the road a few years. At the open house held in Malcolm, my husband asked the representative of Sophos if he'd like to live next to this, and he refused to answer, which I think says a lot. Would anyone here want to live next to this? No, I don't believe so. There have been 9 fire events in BESS facilities during 24 and 25. And looking at EPA information, it appears these fires are allowed to burn out, which I believe you said they are. We have to live with the smoke. We have to live with the emissions. We have to live with whatever fallout there is environmentally. And that is a real concern for us. We know how fierce the wind blows in Nebraska constantly, and there are a lot of homes in that area. And if that's just allowed to burn, what happens? I mean, where do we go? What do we do? We feel our concerns are legitimate, especially concerning to us was, the open house. We're obviously constituents of the community, and we did not have an opportunity really to talk to a county commissioner who was present, and we felt like that was something that maybe we should have been approached about. But we feel that the assurances of safety from an out-of-state company aren't sufficient. And today, when we heard, that about Moss Landing, which obviously they're saying is a different situation, but Moss Landing was once new technology too. And that ended up to be a catastrophe, and this is relatively new, and we just don't want to live with the possibility of what can happen, where we have to be so close. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you so much. Welcome.
Kevin Lostro, 13651 West Adams. Obviously, I'm her husband. I just had one follow-up on the map there where the units are. There is a fairly decent-sized drainage ditch that cuts across that southeast corner. And they are right over the top of it. I don't know what would be done with that, but it is just, it's right on top of that. So that was just another concern of mine, along with what my wife testified.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for him? Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Hi, my name's Matt Turek. I'm at 13701 West Adams, and I live north of this proposed site. So, listening to their presentation, I had a couple of concerns as far as the fallout of if this doesn't go, or the decommissioning of this. So they said they have a 15, 20-year decommissioning length. And then they said the electrical board had a 10-year. There's risk with a private entity. Say they go bankrupt year 13, 14. Then who's left to decommission this site? In addition to who's left to monitor this site? I have 8 kids. We live just north of this, half a mile. So if this isn't being monitored in that time of year, and I still have young kids, so they'll be around 13 years. In that amount of time, who deals with the fallout of this? What happens? There is a residential development just to the south of this, and the wind blows from the north. So if this starts on fire, there's a lot of people that's going to be impacted by that, including us. The wind blows from the south. My family, my in-laws. I live on that farm too. So there is concern of this. It's great they have fire detection on these things. That's great, but I don't know what benefit it is, because if these things start fire, they let them go. So that's a concern to me. The gas and monitoring. What's the response times if there is an alarm? There is a major ditch that goes right through there. We rely on our groundwater. So what's the response times? What's that look like? What's the maintaining look like in this? To what extent? They say they maintain them, they say they test them, but is there anybody that follows up, and is there some sort of accountability? Is there an inspector that the county has that looks at these sites annually, every 5 years? Are we sure that they are actually doing their job like they're supposed to? Yes, there are standards they have to meet, NFPA and regulations they have to meet, but who's holding them accountable to meet those regulations? Just another thought that I had, I'm sorry. Also, a coal car empty is about 30-some tons. Full is 100-some. So a tornado can knock those over. They said these are going to be bolted down, but what's the test? What are these rated for? We could have a tornado like we had at Hallam, and this is going to be littered all over our landscape, our farmland, where we grow crops, where we raise our cattle in an already struggling cattle business right now. So I just asked to keep those kind of things in mind. The fallout of this, great. Year 1, 2, 3 of this could be beneficial, but I just want you guys to understand the fallout of what happens if it doesn't go great. It's not like NPPD is putting this up for their own. This is a private entity, which they have no string attached to this land because they're leasing it. So if worst case comes to worse, they just wash their hands and walk away from this. And the neighborhood everybody in this community is left with a fallout of this. Also, they were talking about the decommissioning, the resale value of this stuff, and I know some questions were brought up, the value of this. Well, to use his example, the phone from 15 years ago that blew up, there's no value in those. What's to say in 15 years there's going to be any value in this for the decommissioning of the site? So again, just another concern if this doesn't work out, if we're going to have, who's going to be left to clean up this mess? Who's going to be left to monitor this abandoned, empty site if no one's going to take these batteries and dispose of them?
One more minute.
And I hope you guys can keep that in consideration of this particular site. I don't think this could be the best site where this could be done, because there are people that live south of this. There's people that live right north of this. There's people that live just across the street from this. So I hope you please keep that in consideration when making your decision on this projected site. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional testimony?
Hi, Ashton Lostro, 13665 West Adams.
Thank you.
Hi. My husband and I have 3 boys and cattle, and we live a quarter of a mile from this site. You could actually see our house from one of those photos that they shared. They covered a lot of my concerns, so I won't touch back on that and waste time. But I do want to say that I oppose this facility. After a lot of research, I've grown concerned with the risks, the malfunction, the fire, the explosion. One common theme that's severe weather plays a role in this. And not only the tornadoes, but you talk about heat waves, polar snaps. We all know how severe and extreme the weather patterns are here in Nebraska, which obviously adds a layer of concern. So when we talked about Moss Landing, that was 200, I believe 200 megawatts. The one that they're doing in Waverly is 170, or no, that was 300. Waverly's 170, and the one that we are doing by us is 200. When this exploded in Moss Landing, like they said, it might be different, but 55,000 pounds of heavy metal was released everywhere, including into the soil, which messed up their water, which is such a huge aspect that people are not, I guess, talking about, in my opinion. I mean, we have to drink that forever. But I do have a question. So my question is about, when I said about the 3 areas, Waverly is 41 acres with 170 megawatts, but this one is 20 acres with 200 megawatts. So I'm just curious why they need more land there versus our area. But anyways, I do just want to say that we love this area. We feel safe here. We hope to keep it that way, and I want to thank you for listening.
Thank you. Additional testimony in opposition? Okay, thank you. Staff questions?
Just say, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, somebody left a purse
Oh.
here on the floor. That's,
Oh, she's coming in right now.
Okay.
Come on in and get your purse. That's great. Thank you. George, would you like to start before we start with our questions? Anything you want to address?
I would just note that this is, as mentioned, final action unless appealed to the county board. There's an appeal form and there's an appeal fee. If anyone is interested in that, they can contact me. And as mentioned, that's within 14 days of any action, approved or denied.
Excellent. Thank you for that information. Questions? Any questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Campbell.
George, isn't it correct that weed control is supervised countywide, not just citywide?
Correct. There is a county weed superintendent.
And that would be the most logical complaint outside of the fencing, as far as something happening fire-wise or anything like that. and catching in dry weather?
I don't know specific to the fire. I do know that they regulate noxious weeds, and there is weed regulation. So if there was a concern about weeds, then the county weed superintendent could be involved.
Okay, thank you.
Who would like to ask the next question? Commissioner?
Sure can. It's a lot about that accountability piece that was brought up several times. I mean, does the county go out there to check annually? I mean, that was a question. That was
Right. The same question came up during the prior BEST project. There's not an annual inspection requirement once an occupancy is granted. Now, if there would be a complaint, whether it's a complaint about weeds or a complaint about health or other aspects, then the respective agencies would respond to that.
And then maybe for folks who, like me, I was new to this process when the first one came out. Can you help explain that decommission process? And, if the business is out of it, who takes care of the cleanup and where that money goes, et cetera?
I might actually ask Steve Henriksen to explain that in further
Great.
detail.
Awesome. I think that would be very helpful.
Steve Henriksen, Planning and Development Services, 555 South 10th Street. So when we looked at this one, we used the example of the wind turbines. And I do have the specific decommissioning plan. So in the decommissioning plan, they note that for this particular project, you're looking at the, excuse me, I'm looking at the right one. So that for the Pawnee Lake one, so the cost of decommissioning is $5.4 million, but the salvage value is 2.7. So day one, if day one all you would do is salvage it, it actually costs more to because your salvage value is low. However, like we saw with wind turbines, if you've invested the money to put all of this on place, and let's say their material talks about this being a $200 million investment, you have a $200 million investment and you're using technology A, whether that's a wind turbine or battery energy storage. And within a few years, technology B is now available. Well, if you have technology A and you have spent $200 million on technology A, more than likely you're just going to continue to use it because you have such a large investment and it is still storing energy, or in the case of a wind turbine, it's still generating energy. And so, but if there comes a point where technology B, to replace what you have in the ground actually makes sense, then you'll go ahead and replace it. And you actually saw that with some wind turbines nationally, where the blade technology changed and a bunch of blades were changed on the wind turbines. Now, if you think about LES owned some of the first wind turbines just north of the interstate where the prison is going. For them, that the age had gone so long that it wasn't worth it to them to change the blades, but they kept on using them because they still had value. And so we saw the same kind of analogy with this battery energy storage, that yes, day one, if you're just going to salvage it, then it's going to cost you more to do it. But it would take a number of years before really you would salvage it. If this company went out of business, another company would just pick it up and simply use it for its intended purpose. So we didn't see any reason for the first 15 years to have a surety in place, because what you've seen with a lot of different technologies is even though you have the old technology, it is still valuable to you because you spent so much money to build it, to continue to maintain it, and you don't need the decommissioning until it comes later in its life. And the decommissioning, I'll note, is for a full removal of the site. Mm-hmm. There may be some other use for the property that you have to come forward and get a special permit that might make use of the cement and some of the other things that were there. Or simply because you've already put a lot of it cost into developing it, you'll just simply go to the new technology and it would continue on even with company B at that point.
Right.
I'll also note that when we're talking about specifically tornadoes, our department is now Planning and Development Services, so I guess I'm supposed to be ready to talk about building code.
Exactly.
But all I can really say in that case is that, yes, this would get a building code, and we do have requirements for even your shed in your backyard that it meets a certain wind load standard. But like anything in Lancaster County or across the Midwest, we don't guarantee that our standards mean it won't move an inch. A tornado can be much stronger than most of our technology. And when you think about it, we have cars all across this landscape that are far easier and go flying across the land. So we do not really try to guarantee that anything in any of our special permits is tornado proof. But certainly these structures will have to meet our current wind standards for that. That plus their weight would logically mean that they're probably not going to go far. I remember seeing the facility just south of Waverly when it was hit, and the very large air conditioning unit. It was sliding across the parking lot like it was a Volvo, but it was a several ton item. So again, I'm not trying to display any concerns about tornadoes. It's just that's simply something beyond any of our regulations to guarantee a tornado-proof facility.
And follow up with that. Remind me, this special permit is with the land in perpetuity. There's no expiration. Okay. Thank you.
Correct. So if the facility fell into disuse, somebody could call our department, and if it has been beyond 15 years, then we would start the decommissioning process to say, okay, we now have this surety, and if they're not removing it themselves, we can move forward to remove it. The positive of this is that this is at least something that's far removable than a wind turbine. And a wind turbine can still be removed. It's just not your average person can go out and remove a wind turbine. It takes a certain expertise to do that versus decommissioning some equipment that is bolted down to the ground.
Thank you. Just a question on the issue of protecting the water. Did Watershed, or do we have anything on that?
Both the health and county engineer reviewed from environmental standpoint. Water would be something that, as far as drainage, that the county engineer's office would review.
Excellent. Awesome.
Yes, and Jenna Vogt from the Lancaster County Engineer's Office, 444 Cherry Creek Road. I'm a civil engineer with the office. We did ask the applicant to put a drainage easement along that waterway. That's sort of a standard practice for our office, and so it's 120 feet on each side, well, centered on the channel, so 60 feet on each side. And that buffer comes from the City of Lincoln's requirements for drainage easements, so nothing can be built, including fences, in that 120-foot buffer, and that just maintains proper drainage through the waterway and protects it in the future.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I wanted to follow up on that because the major water that shows up, which is in the southwest corner of the thing, you can see the dotted line around that on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a comment by one of the people giving testimony, and then I was looking at the Google Earth, and there is drainage, water that comes through the south east corner. Sorry, I'm getting my directions. I'm tired. Southeast corner. And there is building over that. So was that taken into consideration?
Our office policy follows the USGS Blue Line streams, which is just something that the USGS does a lot of calculations to come up with, and they have them just statewide and US-wide. And so our policy is that when there's a blue line stream, that's when we request that the buffer be put into place. And if there's no blue line stream, then we do not require one. So there was not a blue line stream on that southeast corner, just the southwest corner.
Okay, thank you. And then would there be any state inspections, like say the state fire marshal or anything like that you know of?
I might defer to the applicant on that
Excellent.
question, yes.
Okay, any other questions before? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Applicant rebuttal? And this time I'll have you go first.
Okay. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, Commissioners. David Levy, Baird Home Law Firm, 301 South 13th Street. I want to maybe start by picking up where Steve left off. I appreciate his comments about decommissioning. I thought he summarized that much better than I did. I do want to add also, though, that another safeguard is that in any project like this, any capital investment of this size, whatever the type of project, you're going to have lenders, you're going to have investors, you're going to have other parties who are very interested in seeing that the project continue to operate at peak efficiency. That's how they get paid back, right? If the developer walks away and the project sits there and it's not making good on its contractual obligations to sell capacity and energy and make money, then you can't pay back the lenders and investors, and they're going to pretty quickly show up and kick that person out and take over operation of the project. So that's maybe in the practical sense, at least, the best safeguard to make sure that a project like this is operated well and is taken care of and operates for a long time. But as was mentioned also, certainly the county has enforcement authority. Following up on that, I think one of you had a question there at the end, maybe Commissioner Ryman Yost, it was you about the state or other inspections. Sorry, Madam Chair.
All
See,
good.
I
It's all
shouldn't.
good.
I shouldn't have tried.
No.
Someone's calling me too, of course.
We're like a team up here, though.
Yeah. State electrical inspector and state fire marshal.
Is that an annual
No, that's at the time of commissioning.
time of commission?
Right. You have to
Okay.
make sure that we meet applicable fire codes and applicable electrical codes.
Okay.
Couple of other things. This developer does not have eminent domain authority. Period. Full stop. One of the commenters brought that up. Understand the concern, but this developer does not have eminent domain authority. The difference in the size of the land, somebody asked about why the 128 acres for 170 megawatts, why 20 acres? Here, because you have a substation already there, you don't need to build a substation to interconnect to the grid, whereas in Waverly, you're interconnecting into electrical lines, but there's not a substation right there. So you have to build a substation, hence more land, even though fewer megawatts. Decommissioning, I think we beat that one up, but of course we're happy to answer any further questions you all might have. Moss Landing, again, I don't know how better to describe it really than apples and oranges. It gets brought up all the time. I understand somebody used the word catastrophe. I think that's a fair characterization, but as we've described, this is a completely different situation. The only real commonality is that they're both battery storage projects. Other than that, this is an entirely different project, much newer technology, not all in one building, in individual steel compartments and all of the things that we've talked about. We've talked a lot about safety mechanisms, safety requirements, what happens in the event of a fire or something like that. I don't mean to give those short shrift at all. I don't also want to belabor them or take your time unnecessarily, but again, we're happy to answer any further questions on that. And I think that really addresses at least the things I wrote down. Again, we are more than happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Commissioner?
Southeast drainage.
Yes, the southeast drainage. So as was mentioned, that's not a blue line stream, as it was called. It's not a jurisdictional water, so there's not a legal requirement to avoid that. Let me go to this slide. As you can see, the site is tight. It's,
The
you know,
same,
it's,
he hasn't come up yet.
Oh, sorry. There you go. So, so yes, we are proposing to build over that drainage. There's not a legal requirement to set back from it or stay away from it. If that's something that the commission is particularly concerned about, you know, we can try and address that. There's not a lot of room on the site to do a different layout, but we can, you know, again, if that's a concern, that's something we want to address.
So, I know it was your question. Can I follow up?
You go for it.
So the engineers that developed, or architects, or whoever drew this plan, is not concerned about the potential impact of water, or is the theory that will be diverted, or it'll just continue to run underground there?
Russ, can you talk to that? No, you're good.
Again, Russ Edwards with Sophos Power, 917 Anderson Street, Charlottesville, Virginia. So we still have as David has mentioned about the former project and this one, quite a ways to
You move the mic closer.
I
You can lift it
absolutely
up.
can.
Thank
David
you.
and I are not the same height. And I didn't mean
He has to go and point that
out.
True.
Yeah, we have a ways to go through other local and state and federal permits, including our SWIP plan. And so what we have here is a conceptual layout, but we have a long ways to go to get through the Nebraska SWIP process.
Okay. So this is a conceptual, yeah, okay. That's what I was wanting to understand. Thank you.
But yeah, as Russ pointed out, we'll still have to get approval from what we used to call NDEQ for this.
Okay.
I'm good. And I think that, thank you, Gloria.
Okay, thank you. And let's see if we have, we talked about the inspections. I think that also answered my questions. Anything else before we go? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Edens?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Veit,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Public hearing closed.
And I would move that we approve special permit for 25045.
Second, Edens?
Okay, who would like to start?
I
Commissioner?
think this is well planned out. There's always unknowns with any new technology. I think they are addressing them and still have plenty of things to go through before this would be permitted to go in place, as far as the drainage and things like that. So I think we're all well covered in all of those different areas that yet have to be determined. And plus, I think this company has come forward with the newest elements that are available, and it is putting them in smaller trailers rather than in one large building and so on. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So I'll be voting for this.
Okay. Anyone else have any other discussion points?
I would just kind of echoing my fellow commissioner that, right, what is before us is the land use and not the design of the site or those kinds of things, that the pieces that are related to land use that are within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, I think, have been addressed. Some of the other concerns, I think, will be addressed as they move through the process that are different from the approval for the land use for the approval of the special permit. The one thing I think that it's good to know that the fence is a part of the health department plan if that is if required, so that we know that that's in there. So given all I hear the concerns, but given the role of the Planning Commission at this stage, then I will also be voting to approve.
Okay. I also agree with my fellow commissioners. I appreciate, though, the testimony, and I think that there's a lot of system ways to take care of a lot of these concerns, if not all of them. And at this time, from a land use standpoint, again, agreeing with my fellow commissioners. So let's call the vote, Laura.
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Veit,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Motion approved 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so.
Seeing none, I would move that we adjourn.
Second, Edens?
Laura?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Veit,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.